The history behind the mission at Maneadero began several years ago when Calvary Chapel High Desert began looking for ministry opportunities throughout the Ensenada area. They began visiting migrant camps, where migrant workers, mainly from Oaxaca, Mexico, would come to work in the fields. The living conditions were deplorable, and Calvary Chapel sought to improve their living and health conditions. But more than the physical needs, Calvary Chapel sought to meet the spiritual needs of the people. As they continued to travel throughout the Ensenada area, they began visiting colonies on the outskirts of Ensenada. In 2002, Calvary Chapel came across a colony known as Colonia Jesus Carrillo in Maneadero. The Jesus Carrillo colony is made up almost exclusively of migrant workers from the southern state of Oaxaca. It is situated east of the main highway, adjacent to the agricultural fields in which they work. It was here where Calvary Chapel felt that God was leading them to establish a more permanent ministry base, and thus began ministering to the needs of the people in the colony. Some of the first ministry efforts to this colony included efforts to improve their health conditions, providing improved bathing and bathroom facilities, and building new homes that would replace the cardboard and spare wood structures that they lived in. As a demonstration of God's faithfulness and a promise of future blessings within the colony, the first home built for one of the colony members was built for a woman who soon moved away. The owner of the property was so moved by Calvary Chapel's show of love for the colony that he allowed the church to purchase it at a very low price, and thus the first structure the church built for the community later became the first structure that the church owned in the colony. And so it was determined that this small house would be set aside for a permanent missionary, with the hope that someday God would send a missionary family to remain in the colony, ministering to the people on a permanent basis. Until that prayer could be answered, the church continued visiting the colony and ministering to the needs of the people, both physically as well as spiritually. During this time, the church also purchased an additional 8 acres of land, where they hoped to someday build a permanent church building for the people of Jesus Carrillo, as well as the surrounding colonies, to have a place to come and worship. After 2 years of prayer and waiting on the Lord to provide a permanent missionary family, the prayer was finally answered with the arrival of Tim and Kathy Johnston. Tim and Kathy have continued overseeing the ministry and construction efforts. In just the 1 year since the Johnstons' arrival, a new home and small missionary dormitory have been built on the church's property. The home given to the church has also been expanded to support the growing needs of the ministry. The next projects include the construction of a large dormitory and fellowship hall. However, before that project gets underway, their church is praying for a permanent pastor to live on the property and build up Christian leaders within the community. The vision for Maneadero does not end with the construction of a church for the community. God's nature is a missionary nature. He constantly looks throughout the world for people that are ready and willing to receive Him into their heart. The vision for Maneadero is to build up spiritual leaders within the community who can themselves become ministers who would go out into other parts of Mexico to continue spreading the gospel. The church property is envisioned to someday be a missionary base where aspiring ministers and missionaries can receive training. The church site is situated in a good location, and there are plenty of ministry opportunities in the surrounding area. We envision being able to plant more churches further to the south as well as to the east of Maneadero. Over the last year, God has placed on our family's heart a desire to participate in the ministry to the colony of Jesus Carrillo as permanent pastoral missionaries. My wife and I have been praying about it and feel that God is leading us in this direction. Over the last few months, we have been taking trips to Maneadero to begin assisting with this ministry. During the next few months, we will be working toward the eventual goal of putting our house in order to make the permanent move to Maneadero. As 1 Timothy 4:8 explains, physical training is of some value, but our desire is to be in spiritual training and preparation for this assignment. Please pray with us as we seek to secure God's vision and direction for our family, as well as for the colony of Jesus Carrillo.